your screen, but without it.
Sorry, members. I'm trying to reconnect a few technological glitches. Yeah, I think now we shall be okay. Now, are we seeing it now?
No. I think you closed it. Maybe just do what we did. Now we're just seeing your normal screen, but without it. I think you remember you had opened and put it on your taskbar, I think.
It is already on the desktop, huh?
Yeah, so just remember the steps that you did earlier?
Yes, the steps we followed.
Okay. Yeah, the one we followed. No. Because the meeting is already opened.
Yeah.
You just close this one, then you find it.
I close this one.
Yes, what we are seeing. Yes, that one. Okay, there it is. There it is. You can drag it and you can make it bigger. We can see your whole desktop now. And it's right there.
Okay.
You can make it bigger. Just drag it and you make it bigger.
Yeah.
Yes. Now.
We okay now?
Yes, maximize it though, because we can't see.
Yes. And okay. So maybe just a quick introduction of myself. So I am an economist with, can I say, about 23 years of experience in issues of research, policy, M&E, and corporate planning matters, which basically now involves issues of strategic planning, work plans, performance contracting, and the associated functions. Currently, I'm also pursuing my PhD at KU. I'm at the level of submitting my thesis. And I've worked with several institutions. And I think I'll just mention the ones that are a bit relevant to our discussions today about the issues of performance. And these ones include KIPLA, that is the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research Analysis. And currently I'm the Corporate Planning Monitoring and Evaluation Manager at Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company. So as I have indicated here, what I really want to motivate are discussions. I know maybe the participants, we are from different backgrounds. Some could be in the national government. Others could be in counties. Maybe others are in development partners. What we basically call non-state actors. May it be for private, for profit, or for non-profit, the NGOs and the like. Others, we also know that they could also be in private business. And wherever we are, this issue of key performance indicators, it is something that we can actually use for purposes of improving our enterprises, our organizations, businesses. Not even that, even at the social life, we also give ourselves these kind of things. You know, whenever at the end of every new year, we talk about resolutions. It is actually something that you can actually track using the KPIs. So basically, this will be discussions given our individual, economic, and the social life experiences that we have. So in terms of the outline, I'll first highlight the objectives. Then we deal with issues of concepts. You know, these three terms, key, it means that you could be having many performance indicators, but then you have to use the rule of 2080 to know which ones would you put for tracking. So those ones become the key ones. Then we shall also try to anchor the issues of the KPIs in the county and the national policies, the ones that are, which are the bedrocks for them. Then, since we shall be having discussion for about 3 hours, I think at some point we shall have a healthy break, maybe 10-15 minutes, depending on what we shall agree. Then the other part is basically like the practical orientation part of it. So we shall try to link the KPIs implementation through what we call the performance contracting, all the way from the process of setting, freely negotiating and agreeing with the parties involved, issues of reporting, how you track. So that is basically the practical orientation of it. And I shall also try to do some empirical demonstration. If we were having what we call the face-to-face meeting or a session, maybe that would be an opportunity where everybody can try and do some practical assessment or evaluation of some hypothetical parameters. But since now we are doing the virtual, so we shall try to do a demo on a few of them. And what I have done is I have chosen parameters that are kind of cross-cutting, like issues of sales, issues of customer satisfaction, and there may be something to do with the time. So we shall discuss a few things of that, and then we can conclude. Now, although I have said that we can have a Q&A, question and answer session at the end, but in the spirit of eliciting discussions, I would propose that in case you have a burning issue, not only in terms of a question, but also maybe a comment you would like to make so that you make it clear out of your experience, it is very much welcome so that we can proceed as a team. So basically, the objectives after these 3 hours or so is really to understand, first of all, when we talk about the KPIs, what they are, and then we try to anchor them to the policies. And then also after understanding, we also try to understand their benefits or importance, not only to the organizations, but also in our everyday life, social life, religious life. All those, they are also relevant that we can apply. And then what is important is how do we create relevant and effective KPIs? Of course, now this is a bit it's not something that you can really say that it is a do and a don't do, or a clear guideline, because it really depends on your organization and its orientations. Because you see, they say that if, for example, it is for a private sector, the bottom line matters most in terms of the profit. If it is for government, I think the emphasis is on service delivery. So, but we can try to see cross-cutting relevant and effective KPIs. Then in the practical part of it, when we try to do some demonstrations, we shall try to distinguish between what we call increasing and decreasing KPIs. Statistically, basically, this means that although we shall come to the details, if, for example, it is something on revenue or sales, definitely is that the more you sell, the more you generate a revenue, the better for the organization, the better for the individual, the better for the shareholders, the better for all the stakeholders. So therefore, that revenue becomes an increasing variable. In other words, from statistical point of view, the higher it is, the better the performance. Then others are decreasing. So statistically, if you had set yourself a KPI that you shall do something within 3 hours, if you accomplish that target, what you have set for yourself, within 2 hours, it is better. So therefore, whereas that statistical parameter is decreasing in terms of statistical value, it denotes better performance. And these are very important because under the performance contracting, they have different connotations. And also the way they are calculated, as we shall see, they are different. Then also we try to see from maybe the theoretical point of view, how we can implement and evaluate the KPIs and effectively manage the measurement system of the same, so that as much as possible, we are putting in place mechanisms that try to reduce, even if not completely remove or avoid human biases, but at least as much as possible to reduce any kind of human biases. Because naturally, as much as people would like to say that they want to become very objective in some issues, naturally you feel that they are what we call human biases. So that is why you have to set the KPIs well in advance. Then you agree, the parties agree that maybe we shall be evaluating them either monthly, either quarterly or yearly, depending on the parameters. So these are kind of the objectives that we try to achieve. And I'm hoping that out of our discussions, we should at least be able to get something out of that. So from a conceptual point of view, this discipline of KPI, it is what we call social science. Now, in the social science, this is where we also blend between some elements of natural science, the numbers, but also some kind of opinions that can also be quantified consistently. So in that case, there are many definitions of these parameters, as many as maybe they are the experts or the scholars in them. And even now, us as participants, once we go through, you might now try to domesticate your understanding of this from your environment that you are working in. But then generally, in terms of general definition, we are talking of performance. When we are now talking about performance management, systematic processes where managers perform to effectively lead, manage, assess, and develop employees. And here again, the word managers, it is used to say a person who is in a position to make decisions for organizations. So not necessarily the managers in the narrow sense that we refer to it. Because basically, again, the basic mantra is that you have targets, aspirations that you want to meet. But the means of meeting those targets are limited. So basically, that is basically what we say in economics. We have unlimited needs and wants. Yet, the resources that we are supposed to use to meet those needs are limited. That is why you have really to manage and assess your progress as you progress with the time. So therefore, in a nutshell, this includes issues of goal setting. And now those goal setting, that is where you agree, the parties agree that now last year, our, for example, revenue was 100 million. Given the operating environment, for example, we are going maybe to increase number of customers, we are likely to change the tariff that we are using, we are likely to expand our market. So realistically, we can move from 100 million to maybe 110. Parties discuss. So that is now where you are talking about goal setting. And that is why in the PC, it is usually emphasized that it is not something that is imposed on the doers. It must be freely negotiated. And once it has been negotiated, of course, then you document, and then you can be able now to track it over time. Then there is the issues of various layers in an organization. Maybe in a typical organization, you are starting with the board of directors. They say that as an organization, we are going to have to achieve this. Then the board usually is the decision-making, overall decision-making. They are usually not the doers. So they cascade whatever has been agreed, for example, to the chief executive officer, the MD, the general manager. Then the general manager also cascades to everybody else, so that at the end of it, each and every staff or employee in an organization will be contributing in one way or another to the issues of achieving those agreed KPIs. Then the issues of assessment. This needs to be what is popularly being recommended is this 360-degree assessment, where now you, if for example, I am the corporate planning manager at Nairobi Water, I can also assess my boss. Because in the PC, you realize that there are commitments of parties. The doer has commitments, then the supervisor also has commitments, basically of facilitating or enabling. So if you are, for example, not facilitated, then definitely you see that you will have constraints in terms of implementing. So basically with the aim of improving the effectiveness in accomplishment of its mission, vision, strategic objectives, and of the organization. Again, maybe something else I need to point out here is that these concepts of mission, vision, initially when the discipline of strategic planning was starting, the overall understanding was that you usually start with the vision, and then you come to the mission. But now when you look at it critically, when you say that the mission is your core business, what the organization is there, exists for. And then this other one, the vision is the overall long-run objective. Then you see that you must set the overall long-run objective within what you are doing. So the developments that have been there is that you start with your overall, and then you set your overall mission, core business, and then the vision. But I think these are concepts that we can discuss more under the issues of strategic planning. So why we do measure that is because there is value. There is value of measuring the performance. As we always say, what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. Because you'll never know whether you are really stagnating, making progress, or you are just there. And also, what you cannot measure, you cannot be able to improve. So there are no incentives of improving. And if you cannot also improve or measure, then even growth and development becomes a constraint on the same. So when we are measuring issues of performance, it helps in objectively differentiating between performance and non-performance. And this issue is very critical in an organization, because you might realize that you could be having some people who are doing what we call back services support. But now the ones who are seen to be performing are the ones who are basically at the front. And this is something that I have realized, for example, in where I work in a water city and storage company. Just to give an example of what I mean is that, for example, when it comes to revenue correction, we have regions that are dealing with revenue correction. So at one point, we were actually basing the reward on performance, on revenue correction. Now, but for those regions to collect, there are some back office services that are supporting them. Because, for example, you have a person who is doing the issues of billing. Because before you correct, you must bill and bill correctly so that you reduce customer complaints. So if you just recognize that person who is doing the ed role, the ed function, and not also appreciating that he or she is getting support at the back, you might lose it. But also there are also issues why we also want to move. You also want to see if they are non-performance, and then what you can basically do about them. And usually, you know, we know about the disciplinary mechanisms, but what is usually recommended is that since you started by freely discussing those KPIs, then at one point, you also have a discussion as to why things are not moving. Maybe it could be the kind of the support that we are talking about that this person is not receiving. But of course, also why it is important, you know, they say that work is necessary evil. So it's good to put people on their toes so that they can be able to deliver on their specific roles. So therefore, just maybe to wind up, the issue of KPIs, we are saying there are vital signals which indicate if your business is functioning according to what you had planned. So we have the three terms. E, you are talking about the important or the vital ones that you want to prioritize in terms of your implementation. That means that in an organization, for example, you have some key indicators, top level. And that is how we usually differentiate, for example, between performance contracting. For example, a performance contract between an organization, let me still use Nairobi Water, for example, we do contracting with the county, Nairobi City County. The items that we shall put there at the organizational level are the key ones. When you come downwards, you come and then detail, because those key ones will also be supplemented or supported by doing some very specific activities. So that's why you see at the top there, you have the performance contracting. Then downward, you can have, for example, the work plans, the annual work plans. Now, those ones details what will achieve the top. Then, so that is the word. So the word is key. So out of your so many activities, you look at which is the one which is at the bottom line, so that you can now accept that that is the key. Then the issue is performance, and I think that one we have we have already seen when we are talking about business performance. Is the manner in which something operates, functions, or behaves. So, and here we are just giving live examples. For example, just like an engine's performance can be measured by its mile per gallon or per liter. So we are saying that then we also need to look at beyond the profit, because the profit is usually the very, very, very bottom line. Before that comes, your customers must be satisfied. the quality of your products must be competitive. You must also be able to tell about your operating environment in terms of legal and regulatory framework, in terms of competition, in terms of if you are, for example, producing a product that will be used as an input to another level, how that other industry operates, it also affects you, because that basically will determine the demand for your product. Then we are talking about the indicator. So it's information about the draws attention condition. So how are we on this? So that is the indicator. So usually in terms of numbers now. Therefore, a key performance indicator is something that can be counted and compared. You can compare with the time, on time. You can compare one organization with the other, if they are comparable. Or you can also see how yourself as a person, you are developing over time. The motivational speakers usually tell us that in life, always try to have your own path and your own KPI, so that don't compare always yourself with maybe the people you left the college together or you work together, because the backgrounds are different. So what happens, therefore, you assess yourself over time. In 2023, I am at point X. So where do I want to be in 2 years to come, 3 years to come? So you are also now comparing just one, that is one player, yourself, over time. So you can be able to specify on that. So in terms of the various categorization, we can have several of them. There is the issue of the process, those ones that are in the process, KPIs. So basically the measure of efficiencies or productivity of business processes. And I think I had given this example, time you take to complete a certain task, if it is a customer order. So in that case, that is reducing KPI. So the faster you do it, the better. Then others are input, assets and resources that you do, for example, for you to enhance. For example, funding for training. You are training, or somebody is is up. Hello, participants? Somebody with a comment? Hello, Kamundo, can I kindly ask you, because why do you
No, there's no one with a comment. I think it was.
Oh, okay. Maybe something.
Oh yes, there's something on. No. There's no comment. It's just.
Okay. I'm actually finishing this. Then I first open a little bit. So that is about the input. Then you can also have the output and also the outcome, KPIs. I'm still hearing some ringing.
I think it's the comments that are just coming in. I don't know.
Or the chat. Okay, maybe let me finish this. Then we try to open up a little bit. So the other one is about there are some that we also call qualitative and quantitative. You see, like the ones that we try to do what you call, for example, rankings, most efficient, and all the way up to least efficient. Then at the end, when you are doing the analysis, you can be able to quantify. Maybe you say that most efficient, you will give it a score of 5. Then least efficient, down there, you have a score of 1. So that at the end, you will be able to kind of have a quantitative indicator out of the qualitative rankings that you may have started with. Yeah, and this ones again are about the critical success factors, where we are saying that vital areas where things must go right. These are the critical areas. And we are talking about even practical things. For example, in the beverage industry, I think we have always heard about the issue of the formula of the sodas. It is said that actually that is the core of that business. The formula of the whatever makes sodas. So that is the key business on the same. We are also talking about competitive strategy in terms of how you position yourself with others, with other players, unless you are a monopoly. But even if you are a monopoly, remember, people also compare tastes and the differences of the people come or change with the time. So you also have to be alert on that. So basically, this is like what we call it in a game theory, that as a player or a business, you must always be in a position to at least appreciate and understand what your competitors are likely to do. If you are introducing a new product in the market, what are your competitors likely to react? How are they likely to react? So then the characteristics is basically what we call, like always what we used to call the SMART. You need to make simple. Now, simple does not mean that it is not relevant to the business. It must be easy to measure. It must also be relevant to your business. It must also be, they must be also be aligned at the trickle down to the national development aspirations and also international. For example, whatever you do in an organization, in one or another, it will have an implication to, for example, our Vision 2030. Then we are also signatories to the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, for Nalobota, whatever we do, it will have an implication in terms of achieving the universal water coverage by 2030. That is one of the goals of the Vision 2030. It is also another one for SDG number 6 is on the same. So that's what we are calling the trickle-down effect. And then it must be doable. It must be doable. And then, as we have said, at the emphasis, it must also be measurable with specific times. So maybe before we go to issues of how to create, I can pause a little and ask if there are some comments, questions, supplements from our various experiences on the same. So kindly. Anybody, please?
Hi, good morning.
Yes, Peter.
Yes, I work with a company. We are in the we are processing. We are like a manufacturing of a kite, and we process
Manufacturing, yeah.
We process products that we give to our clients, and in the process of I'm in the process of developing the KPIs for key individuals in the company, so that they can be able now to start measuring their key performance in terms of the project they undertake. To some extent, because it's a new thing I'm starting, because I'm a new HR there. you find that they have some difficulties in comprehending what key KPIs are, to the extent the few drafts that I have shared with them, they are unable to comprehend where and how they need to articulate themselves to start measuring their work. Maybe what kind of a strategy do we employ at this point so that they can be well aligned and they can, at the end of the day, bring the objective of which we are looking for?
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. And I think your challenge is not unique, a unique one, especially when it's something that is being introduced in the company. Sometimes we usually get this what we call, initially we call them teething problems or teething challenges. But the challenge also becomes more compounding when now the teething problems last for long. So what I would, maybe the key point that I would recommend is that if the organization has maybe 5-year strategic plan, let people be fully sensitized on that. Then after that, maybe out of the 5-year strategic plan, you could be having the annual work plans, which is basically to various directorates, if they are directorates, departments, sections, up to the individual staff. So again, it's good to sensitize people on the same. Then after that, this concept of the KPIs, I think the management and now the people in the human resource, you should not get tired of continuous sensitization. But it is good when you get the opportunity, you demonstrate the symbiotic relationship between the employer, that is the company, and the staff. Because sometimes, although we may take it like it is usually appreciated, people may not appreciate that symbiotic relationship, that for you to continue working and therefore deriving your economic livelihood from your employment from the company, then the company must also do well. Otherwise, I think we have also had companies that have gone under. So once people understand that symbiotic relationship, that yes, I am depending on the company economically for my economic livelihood. But also now, the company is depending on me to grow, to sustain itself. Because if I don't do what I'm entrusted with properly, we are likely to have challenges. So once that one is understood and appreciated, then I believe that people or the various departments, various directorates, various stations, various sections will take their work very seriously. So if that sinks, the symbiotic relationship between the company and the employees, I believe that will make some milestone. But now this one is not also maybe the management. What we can also say is that don't be impatient. That this thing we started maybe last year. Let sensitization be continuous, so that the message, it can become what we call part of the culture. Because you see, what happens is that even if people don't tell you, there could be some inherent fears in them. Now, the KPIs that are being introduced, is it to lay us off? So you must allay those fears that really we just want to improve the company for improving the well-being and the economic livelihood of everybody. So you also need in those sensitization to reassure that it is meant for good reasons and not for purposes of maybe reprimanding. Of course, now, what is usually difficult is you have to balance, because if, for example, they are non-performance, then it means they are also parasiting on the others. And I'm sure now the HR experts now know how to handle this, because you don't want a situation where you have about 90% of employees are working, but you also have other joyriders. It is not actually fair. Even the Bible that advises us says, if you don't work, then also don't eat. And therefore, in the context of the company, it means if you don't work, then you don't earn. That's basically what it means. So, Peter, that would be my kind of, I know it is not easy, because especially when you are introducing something new, that people become suspicious of what is the purpose. Even if you try to very much clear, but they need assurance and reassurance. But also, Peter, is also good to, when you are in the manufacturing or in the sector that you are in, also try to reach out to other HR, other experts in your related organizations, and they try to see maybe how they were able to circumvent or overcome those kind of challenges. So thank you so much. Somebody else, please.
I have a question, Hutu.
Yes, Salah.
I know maybe we are just halfway gone, so maybe we'll cover this later. I'm not sure, but I would be interested to hear how many KPIs should one individual be given.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if that is something we'll cover later, or you can answer now.
Okay. Thank you.
What is the recommended number of KPIs to give to an individual?
Yes. And we shall cover later when we are coming to the piece.
Mr. Mbutu, I think there is somebody who needs to mute herself or himself with some piano lessons probably going on behind. That may be the noise we've been hearing throughout.
Oh, okay. Kindly, members, participants, if you are not on the floor, you can mute. So, Madam Salah, thank you so much for this. Yes, we shall cover it when we come to discuss the issue of performance contracting. But basically, what I can also tell you is that it is not, there is no specific figure, what we can say. They usually talk about the rule of 6 broadly, the rule of thumb, about 6. So between 5 and 6, that would be okay. But I would put an analogy to something one of my professors was telling us during the university life. So he was advising that he was advising the students to do a good essay. And then he could go ahead and describe, he was using an analogy, what a good essay is in terms of balancing between content and also the length. So he used to tell us a joke that a good essay is like a lady's miniskirt. It should be short for the purpose intended, but long enough to cover the subject matter. So in that context, what I'm trying to say is that depending on the level of business, there is flexibility. But when it comes to performance contracting guidelines for the public organizations, there are guidelines that you should have these areas covered: financial stewardship, service delivery, core business, and that's what we shall see when we shall come to our second kind of a session on the same. So thank you, Sarah, for that. Anybody else? Okay, then maybe we can now try to see the steps. Now, I think this is very relevant to Peter, who is actually, and maybe others.
We can't hear you, Mr. Maura. You have muted your.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you. I think I had unmuted myself. Muted. So,
Mwalimu, we lost. You've got to rewind to go back. But
okay.
We didn't get a huge chunk of what you are saying.
This is about when I was responded to Salah about she had asked how many.
No, that one. That one we had.
Oh, that one you got, eh? Then I was just coming to this
up to the point of the steps now.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. What I was saying is that this is critical, especially for participants like Peter and the others, because maybe Peter was a representative of others who could be starting the conceptualization in their various places of work. The critical thing. So the first one is establishing the goals and objectives. And that needs to be, there must be a buy-in by all stakeholders. And that is why I was saying is we need to link while we are establishing the KPIs to the, for example, strategic plans, to the performance contract that we have, the annual work plan, and also to the relationship between the organization and the stakeholders, especially the employees now in this case. Then after that, we establish the critical success factors from those goals that we have established. Then once we have done that, I think in the previous slide, we linked between the KPIs and the CSF, that is the critical success factors. Then with the time, definitely we need data for that. Because again, remember we said that as much as possible, it is good to eliminate. If you cannot completely eliminate, but reduce as much as possible the human bias in it. So we make the KPIs as objective as possible. That is why you need to have something which is measurable. You remember the characteristics. One of it is that it must be measurable. Then from there, you calculate the metrics in terms of now, basically, if you are talking about collection, you must come to an indicator which is comparable. Basically, these are the percentages as which I'll see later on. Now I cannot move ahead with the slides. Is there a problem? Okay. Oh, so again, I think this one's the important insight when it comes to creating the KPIs. So when we are talking about the 2080 rule in terms of the number of KPIs, it is actually emphasizing on the importance that each and every KPI will have on your business. Again, because we usually draw this from the work experience. Let me give the example of where I work, Nairobi Water. Yeah? In Nairobi Water, we usually say 20%, no, 80% of our revenue comes from 20% of the customers. In other words, what we say, there are customers which we categorize as high consumer customers. So that means in terms of numbers, they just very few, basically because they are corporate. I can give example like the East African breweries. Now, those very few customers give us 80% of the revenue. So in terms of focus, whereas we say that every customer is the same, should be treated equally, their concerns and the complaints should be handled basically the same, but the emphasis. So if, for example, from the water perspective, there is an issue with the brewery, that one we need to move very fast because we know what it means with the business. Then the other thing is, in terms of data, let's use data which is relevant. You know, they talk about you can have a lot of data, what we call to avoid analysis paralysis. Because data overload can actually make it harder. Don't have a lot of data that you can actually not use for purposes of business growth. Then issues of simplicity. Then we usually say that it is not everything that can be counted numerically and statistically that counts. So go for those things that count, the ones that have high impact on the business. And I think that is the emphasis on that. So I can see it is 9:45. Maybe we can have, in case there is somebody else with a comment or so, we can get, and then we can give ourselves a healthy break of about 10-15 minutes so that we can resume around 10. But we can first see if there is anybody with a question, comment, so that now we shall go to the that and the issues of kind of practical orientation. Hello, participants, how are you? You are on?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been advised since we started a little bit late. You remember we were to start around 8:30. We have started a few minutes to 9. we can proceed, and maybe so that we catch up with the lost time. I hope that is okay with you. The good thing is that
Okay.
since we are in our individual places, we can take natural breaks at our pace on a need basis. So let me come to the issues of the steps. I think this is just emphasis. This slide is just emphasizing executive stakeholder support. Basically, this is like your bosses, for example, or the institution that you report to, or at the top management. It is important that there is a buying in that. So again, Peter, let me refer you back because you are at that process. So for example, here you are talking about the management must give you total support on the same. Even your board of directors, there is buying in on the same. Then we identify the various types as we have seen there and how they are used. Then we link those to the KPI strategies. And then we have also talked about the KPIs, the SMART KPIs. Then you also need to engage and partnering with the areas to be measured. We develop systems to support the KPIs data. Now, at the end, when we shall be looking at the practical demos, there is an Excel slide that I will share with you. And I've also sent to Dennis so that you can be able to customize in your own situations. Then the issue of skills, people with skills, of course, which can be developed. And also what is very important is that people need also to buying in, also part of the number one. So I want now to highlight two policy issues. One is the performance management framework of the county government. This is a big work. It was done in 2017 by the Council of Governors. And basically what it aims at is to ensure that counties not only demonstrate what they are doing, but also whatever they do must be relevant and beneficial to the people of Kenya. So in this case, basically you are saying that I think we have always heard about kind of quite relevant projects that are being done. I think this framework was actually advocating that that should not be the case. Then the framework also aimed at eliminating this zero approach, the zero. That is, you have many items, many approaches that are not linked to each other. And I think this is not something which is out of, it is not theoretical, it is something that happens. For example, you see in some organizations, you have a strategic plan, which is, for example, 5 years. When you are implementing the PC, performance contract, you see that it is not linking to the strategic plan. Then also that performance contract, it is not linking to your annual budget. So these are the kind of the zero approach that we are talking about. So we need to create harmony. So this framework also advocates for packaging the previous instruments, and which are many. You have the strategic plans, you have the CIDPs, County Integrated Development Plans, you want the annual development plans, performance contract, RRIs, that is rapid resort initiatives, into one framework so that there is harmony on the same. But also what is critical is that this framework also aimed at aligning the pillars, its pillars to the National Performance Management Framework. And I think that is core, because as we know, in terms of the constitution aspirations, whereas we have the 48 county governments and the national government, they actually needed to work in a supplementary manner so that there is congruence and synergy in the delivery of services. So participants, I would recommend that you try to get time and see this document. It is when you go to the Council of Governors website, you will be able to get that version. But more important, because now this is a little bit old, the national government has also developed a framework, which is in our next slide. And this is what we call the Kenya Integrated Performance Management Policy. And again, just like the other one of the county, I would highly recommend that you try to get time and see this document. Again, this one you should be able to get from the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action. Okay, that is the current name of the ministry. You know, the ministry names have been changing, but this is the current, that one you'll be able to see. So this policy is the overarching policy that to provide the framework for guiding performance practices in Kenya's public sector. And when we are saying in Kenya's public sector, of course, the guidelines, strategies will actually also apply to the non-state actors, including the private sector and also other non-profit organizations. So it provides the principal strategies and the broad guidelines for management and coordination. So those two key words, management and coordination of performance. Now, what is important here is also that we are now moving even down to the individual level, not only at the organizational or institutional level, also to the individual level. And there are some challenges that have been realized in the past, and this policy aims at addressing them. For example, fragmentation in the management application of the management tools and the instruments. Also, there is issue of capacity, weak capacity to oversee implementation of the performance management, and also enforcement mechanism. So once the policy was developed in 2021, there is also the legal instruments that have been proposed. I've not been able to check whether they have already been developed, because you know, we all know how some of the things take long in our parliaments, both the Senate and the National Assembly. But what is critical is also this issue of integration. We are talking of integration of the existing approaches, so like strategic planning, performance contracting, appraisal, work plans, all these ones, we needed to integrate them so that they can actually work together. So once again, participants, the main thing of me highlighting this, first of all, is to provide the background which really supports the KPIs, but also to recommend it to you that go to the ministry, that ministry website, you'll be able to get that document. Then at your convenience, try to review it. Then you'll be able to get a few of the specific guidelines that you can adopt. So the other thing is, now I want us to go to kind of, we are now going to the kind of practical. practical oriented session. And this one, we want to use the performance contracting. If you could recall, when we had the Kibaki government, the NAC government in 2003, that is when we had a lot of public reforms, public service delivery reforms. And one of the instruments that was introduced was the issue of performance contracting. And we have been seeing organizations during the recognition week being given rewards, and this has continued for some time. And this performance contracting is also consistent with a document called Mwongozo. This is also basically the one that is aiming at actually improving the quality of service delivery. And all public institutions, may it be MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, are actually expected to be guided by this. So the performance itself now, in terms of every year, they issue new guidelines because there are also lessons that are learned with the time. Let me just maybe give one example of things that have been learned with the time. Previously, in around 2017, 2018, the PC guideline of then had one element of cost management or cost reduction. And this one, what the target was aiming at, that you try to reduce the cost of things that you have budgeted without compromising the quality and the objectives of what you had set yourself to do. But as stakeholders, when we came to discussions, that particular parameter was actually
We can't hear you.
discussed at length. Because if cost of I think the slide has gone.
We are losing you.
Let me try to say again. Yes. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you,
But
we have lost you.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that some of the things that have actually informed the revisions of these guidelines is out of practice and out of engagement with the stakeholders. Also, other things like, for example, issues like the provisions of, for example, when it comes to procurement, you should have like 30% targeted to women, people living with disability, and the youth. They have also been brought in, those presidential directives. So there are some dynamics that have actually informed all these guidance. And therefore, that is why every year, the national government and also the county government, they revise so that they bring targets that are adding value for organizations. And of course, now we are saying that whatever you have agreed, it forms the basis of evaluation, and they need to be smart. The other thing is about negotiations. I think this is just emphasis. You negotiate freely and agree on targets. Of course, realistic targets, as we say, because what the main principle of performance contracting is that there must be progressive improvement. So if for example, you had achieved, maybe you had achieved 100 million revenue correction, there is no way you are negotiating party, supervisor in this case, will allow you to put anything less than 100. Unless there are very specific convincing reasons that you think you cannot improve on that. So that is why there is negotiations, so that you can agree on that. And then, as we have said, there is the element of cascading, and you monitor the performance progressively. So the main aspect of performance contracting is that you sign performance contract for 1 year, and then ideally you report quarterly on to your supervisor. So cannot move. I'm trying to move to the next slide. Just a minute. Okay. So the latest performance contracting that we have is based on 2021-22 guidelines. And in those guidelines, it has 7 areas, 7 key areas. And for each area, there is the weight attached to it. So the first area is about the bottom line, what we call the financial stewardship and the discipline. So basically, this looks at the issues of the bottom line, issues of, issues like payment of pending bills. They have been vocal in the public sector. Issues of debt equity ratio. So these are some of the parameters that are there. Then for that, we are told that the weight should be 10 for that parameter. Then the service delivery. Service delivery, basically this looks at the issues of customer focus, customer orientation. And they say customer is the king, and then number 2, if you think otherwise, refer to number 1. Customer is the king. Then now, depending on your area, you now go to your core mandate. You can see it is making a lot of sense, because your core mandate in whatever organization is doing, then you are given a lot of weight in it, 60%. If, for example, you are in an organization where the generation of revenue is your core mandate, then it means you have the 60 as number 3, and also the 10 up as per number 1. Then number 4, there is also the broad area of implementation of presidential directives. So that one again had a weight of 2. So for example, you remember during the COVID era, 19, there were specific directives. For example, for the water companies, we were directed that in the informal settlement, we had to supply water so that we tried to combat the spread of the COVID. And this was free. So that was a presidential directive. I've just given an example. There could be several in various other sectors. Then number 5 is this issue to access to government procurement opportunities. Now, that is the issue of I was talking about, especially that percentage to youth, women, and the people living with disabilities, or what they call people enabled differently. Then number 6 is issues of promotion of local content in procurement. That is things that are produced in Kenya. Basically, under the theme of building Kenya. Then we also have now the other cross-cutting issues. So those cross-cutting issues are things like gender mainstreaming. We know the issue of the one-third rule, gender rule in the Constitution. So when you are in various management positions, ensure one-third of either gender are there. Issues like disability mainstreaming. So whenever we are doing some structures within our organizations, we should take care of those people who are physically challenged. Issues of, for example, ISO certification. So these are some of the cross-cutting issues that you are expected to put. But in total, that weight comes to 13. Then out of that, that is just weight. Now, and I think this is what Sarah had asked. How many KPIs do you put? One, at the top for the organization, and also now when you cascade it downward. So the number of broad KPIs, this one now you have to customize to your own situation. So for example, for our company and not water, for the financial stewardship, I think we had about seven key KPIs. Issues of revenue as built, that is billing. Issues of collection, because you have to correct what you have built. Issues of payment of pending bills. Issues of debt equity ratio. Issues of development of the budget, and also compliance with the budget. Because whereas it is a statutory obligation that you develop the budget, but you also need to implement the budget, or in other words, be guided in terms
You have gone off.
You're lost.
of what you do. So the screen has gone. Okay. So you can see members?
Yes.
Dennis? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So
Molim, we can see, but Molim,
yes,
we are able to see what we are projecting, but then
yes.
we lost a few items like 2 or 1.5 minutes ago.
Oh, I can repeat. Thank you for that. Okay. Let me go back. I don't know why my machine is like it is hanging. Sometimes it moves, sometimes it gets stuck. For example, now I want to go back a bit. But I hope you had seen the table of the 7 areas as per the 2021-22 performance contract guidelines. And what I was emphasizing was the weights are the ones that are fixed for each area. Now, when it comes to the different organizations, now you are at liberty to know which parameters, which KPIs you want to put for various areas. And I was only giving an example of Nairobi Water with 7 KPIs for the first area, that is the financial stewardship. I had talked about revenue as built. That's one of them we usually have. Then we also have a revenue corrected, because it is one thing to build and it's another one to correct. Then we had the issue of development of the annual budget. Then we also had implementation of the same, or rather compliance with the budget. because there are some situations where you could develop the budget just for statutory purposes, so that you meet the purpose of you have submitted the budget by 30th of April. That is the statutory requirement. So you also need to monitor how are you implementing the same. Then there is the issue of payment of pending bills. Then there is the issue of debt equity ratio in terms of looking at your asset side and also the liability side. So basically that was the summary I was making out of that table. And I'm sure when Dennis shares with you the slides, you will be able now to see the details keenly. So now we are on this low score formula, and there are basically two. And I don't want to so much emphasize on the formula, because what is important is the application of the same. There is what we call the raw score. Once you have a parameter, once you have a KPI, for example, you will have the KPI and you have agreed the target, then with the time you have to come and evaluate. This is now where the issues of the raw scores and the weighted scores come about. So usually have what we call the raw score, which is calculated as 1 plus 4, then into bracket 2t minus xa over 2t. That is for the increasing variables. And as I said at the beginning, increasing variables is where, when the statistics of that KPI is higher, then it denotes better performance. So that is the formula that we usually use. Where now, when you are talking about the 2T, the T's and the XA, the T is the target, and the XA is the actual performance, which I'll see in the demonstration that we shall do. So, but you can also see there is the 4. The 4 is the span. So maybe I can just highlight the logic behind this. You can see it is 1 plus. So that 1 basically says or denotes like where you were. Then the rest of that part, 4 plus, or that becomes the improvement part of it. Now, for the reducing variables, the formula is, you can just take the last bit, which is simplified, 1 plus 2xa over t. Again, the same, xa becomes, it is the actual, and the t is the target. So again, the 4 is what we call, which I'll see it is the span. I think which I'll see it in the next slide. So there can be a lot of mathematical work that can be demonstrated to show how these formulae have been derived. If you get the guideline itself, because you can be able to get it from, again, the ministry the Ministry of in charge of public sector performance. If you get this guideline, you'll be able to see how these formulae have been developed. Otherwise, I'm just showing the end results, because I did not want to. Also, we don't have time to go into a lot of mathematics on the same. So then the other, Dennis, you can still hear me?
Yes, Mbutu, we can hear you, but now this formula, it is so complex.
Do you understand?
I'm just wanting to understand, yes. There are performance tools. KPI is a performance. It's just what, there are tools now that where you apply these things. So in this formula, and you have your targets. How will you be calculating those targets? Can you like just even use one example, one metric to calculate?
Sure. Sala, you are just on. When I talked about demonstration, this is what we shall be going to do. I'm just trying to give a background. I fully agree that I did not want to really spend a lot of time on this. I'm just highlighting. And that's why I'm referring you to, in case any participant is interested in the details of deriving this, then you go to the performance contract guideline. Any will give you, but specifically, I'm recommending that you go to the latest, which is 2021-22. Otherwise, I want now to go to the next slide, and this is where I'm stuck, so that we can go to demonstration. So again, now here, this is what we call performance assessment criteria. This is according to the PC. So what happens is that in the PC, we have 5 performance grades, which are also associated with the performance rating. Now, for you to be rated as excellent, I want just to concentrate on maybe the first 3 columns, and maybe very little on the other. You must do 130 and above of your performance. In other words, because this is a mechanism that tries to promote a continuous improvement. So it tries to tell you that if you had said that you for example, collect 100 million in terms of revenue, if you can do 130 or more, that is how you will be rated as excellent. Then anything between 100 and now 130, then that one you are rated as very good. Anything between 70 but less than 100, then you are rated as good. Fair, 50 to less than 70. Then below, anything below 50, it is rated as poor. So that is the framework that is provided. Now, when it comes to these parameters, in terms, because they have implications in terms of calculations, there is what we call the criteria value range. So for example, the excellent one is ranging between 1 and 2.4. So that you have a range of 1.4. So what I can, the analogy I can give this for easy understanding and the fast understanding is the ranking that once we used to have, for example, in primary schools, although I think at one point it was recommended that we don't do the ranking. So that you see excellent is associated with the criteria value of between 1 and 2.4. If you go to the last one, it is between 4 and 5. So you have a range of 1 there. So you remember now in our formula above there, we had the 4. You remember? So that 4 is the span between the best, which is now 1, and the kind of the worst, which has a lower of 5. So that is how it is coming, where it is coming from. So again, I don't want to dwell so much on that, but it is good to understand the importance on the same. The other thing now, before we come to the empirical example, is they are both floor and the ceiling cappings. In other words, the floor means you cannot have a negative performance. So if, for example, it becomes negative, then you have a ceiling. You seal it to 0. It becomes 0. That is floor capping. Then also performance, whereas the excellent performance was encouraging that you can do 130 and above. Again, for it to be realistic, it has been agreed or realized that you cannot really do more than double of what you targeted. In other words, there could then have been something wrong, either in your targeting, that you are maybe so soft. For example, you can imagine that you had targeted to collect 100 million, and then you collect maybe 250. So in that case, the capping, the upper capping has been put at 200%. So these are the two cappings that we have. So now I want to just demonstrate a few on this example, or that maybe I first ask if there are questions before we can now see the empirical example. Maybe I don't need to assume that we don't have a question. Anybody with a question or a comment?
I have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. When you are using a balance scorecard template, will this formula apply?
No, this is for performance contracting.
So yes, okay, performance contracting.
Yes.
Specifically. Expound. Oh, maybe I've lost you at some point. What do you mean when you say performance contracting?
Okay, maybe I can recap. Huh? So what happens is that the two policy documents that we highlighted, that is the County Performance Framework and the Kenya Integrated Performance Management Policy. Those two, these are the policy documents. Now, remember, we are saying that these are geared in the public sector in Kenya. Now, when it comes now to implementation of the performance, then we have the annual performance contract in each and every institution. So that if, for example, it is Nairobi Water, we sign performance contract annually with Nairobi City County. Then now inside the company Nairobi Water, that performance contracting is cascaded. So if it is, Sarah, if I can just ask you, you are in which sector maybe? Sarah?
I'm currently in BPO, business process outsourcing. That is private sector.
Or private sector. So it's something that maybe you can assess and see if it has some value compared with maybe the balance scorecard. But this is basically for the public sector. But I believe there are some elements that can also help even in the private sector. Okay, anybody else? Somebody else? Before we see now the example.
Yes, I do have a question, Mwalimu.
Yes, Rachel.
Actually, it's two. So would it be fair then to say that BSc is straightforward in comparison to performance contracting in the light of this performance formula? And my next question, because I've been having a challenge understanding what performance calibration is the capping that you're talking about here the same as performance calibration?
Okay, in terms of comparisons between the balance scorecard and the PC, yeah? You know, the balance scorecard is another tool that has been used. This performance contracting, ideally, we started, as in the country, Kenya, we started during the NAC government in 2003. And it was realized that it was also being used elsewhere before. Whereas maybe in terms of the mathematics or the mechanism that can be used, you may see that it is more cumbersome. But remember, we said that at the beginning, we said that if we can have the system, and this is actually what I also demonstrate here, it would be very easy to know what there is, maybe the value addition. The value addition that you can see is the PC, performance contracting, tells you that, for example, for you to be rated excellent, it means you have already achieved your total target. That is 100% performance. That is the achievement. Then you have gone a step and made some progressive achievement. That is why it is allowing up to from 130% upward. So that could be the kind of the value addition that somebody can see that. Now, in terms of the cappings, the cappings here are actually maybe meant to ensure that the performance assessment is what we can say within the realistic range. And also, it is also triggering to say that also put realistic KPIs that you can actually be able to plan in a smart way. So that's why you are being told or being encouraged by practice. You know, now this one is once the provision is there of capping, then it means it will trigger the practices. So that when you are setting the KPIs, you will set in such a way that you will not, for example, have a parameter where you will score or achieve more than double. Because basically what it means, if it is being capped at 200%, if you are to score 230% in terms of assessment, you know, in terms of now, when you cap it to 200, what does it mean? It means, in terms of that assessment, that 30% then is not counting. So it is encouraging that be very practical and realistic in terms of setting the KPIs. Lisa, I think that is the bit I can try. Somebody else? I can see this.
Yes, Mwalimu.
Susan, yes?
My name is Susanna.
Yes, Susan
Mwakitawa.
Mwakitawa, yes.
Yes. You have taught about performance contract guidelines and you gave the criteria 1 to 7. I work with the water utility and I'm interested because I heard you talking about Nairobi Water, how you have been able to manage the performance. Now, my question is on the first category, you talked about finance, stewardship, and discipline. And then you said out of it, you created, I don't know, 7 categories. KPIs.
Yes.
Now, on that, how do you cascade the same also, trickle it down to the other stuff? Because in that one category, criteria or category, you have had several KPIs. What about the others, like the service delivery, whatever, core mandate? How do you go about it in each and every stuff, probably?
Thank you, Susan. We are in the same sector. Yeah, you see now, like, first of all, you have asked the issue of cascading and then the others. For example, now I have just given an example of the parameters we have put in the financial stewardship at the display. And among them is the issue of revenue as billed. You must bill for your services. Then you must also collect the money. So for those two now, for example, you will be able to cascade downwards because from the company level, the regional managers will get their targets on billing, both in terms of billing amount, in terms of billing meter reading efficiency and the billing efficiency, and also in terms of billing volume, because we are also billing on the volume. So those ones will be able to cascade to the regional manager. The regional manager will be able to cascade it to the meter reading and the billing teams downwards. So that line you can take downwards. The same case when it comes to revenue correction. You want to increase your revenue correction. So you are able to move to cascade to the regional managers and also the people who do correct for the company. Now, at the company level, that forms only 10%. So the emphasis will then come to when it comes to the core mandate. So what is the core mandate, for example, of now the water utilities? You are talking of production. You must be able to produce. Once you have produced, you should be able to distribute or to sell that water. So the volume of water sold. Very critically, an issue that is really affecting the sector is that you should be able to reduce the water losses, what we popularly call the non-revenue water. So now, that is why, in terms of the core mandate, you should also be able to, for example, extend your pipeline so that you cover more people. You should be able to connect more people. You should be able to address customer complaints. So those form part of the core mandate. You should be able to address risks at the bust. Those are core mandates. And that is why, which makes a lot of sense, it is having the highest weight of 60%. So in all those now core mandates, there are specific people who do specific things. So those are the ones that you can now be able to cascade to their levels. So maybe here, maybe what I can see that I need to clarify is the weights that are given there are at the corporate level. So when it comes to cascading downwards to the staff, you can vary the weights depending on what the staff is doing. For example, a technical person in the water utility, you definitely give a lot of weights to issues of extensions, issues of addressing risks, issues of addressing supply fails. So that is where you give a lot of weight. And they may be very little, if any, on issues of finances. So the weights that are projected there are now at the corporate level. But now when it comes to cascading now downward, you go to different areas that the staff is operating. So I think that is how much I can be able to try to respond on that, Madam Susan. Anybody else? Participant? I can see we have about 25 minutes or so, or 30 minutes. So can we now see this example? Maybe things will become a bit clearer.
That's okay.
Okay. So now, for example, here, members, you can see the Excel sheet that I have just put.
Yes, we can see a bit overlapping. Some sentences are overlapping, some indicators.
So here, for example, under the financial, I've just picked a few examples. We have some items. The first one is on collection, revenue collection. Then out the next column is showing the unit. We want to measure this revenue in terms of million Kenyan shillings. Then out of all the parameters that we have given for the organization, revenue correction specifically is coming to 2%. That it has a weight of 2%. So you remember now, because this is at the corporate level, so the 2% is part of the 10% that was in the financial stewardship and the discipline category. Then now, for this current financial year, in this organization, hypothetical organization, we had a target of 98 million to do for the year. Then we are also assuming for quarter 2, that is the quarter October to December, so the target is again a quarter of that. That is 24.5. Of course, the assumption is that you collect in, you smoothen your target throughout the month and therefore the quarter. So you just take the 98, you divide it by 4. So assuming that now the quarter that ended October, December, you had an actual collection of 20.6 million, okay? So out of that, you can be able to see, now this one, I need to move one of them. Yep. You can be able to see we are now performing at 84%. Fair enough. That is now in terms of already you can be able to make decisions based on that performance of 84%. Now, what we are struggling with is now the issue of the raw score that the performance contract instrument requires to calculate. One of the things is that when you are calculating the performance contracting, remember we said it ranges between 1 and 5. So whenever you calculate, when you are using this tool, it should be in between 1 and 5. And the 5 is the lowest. Then 1 for the excellent is the best. Okay. So in that case, so the first thing you ask yourself is this an increasing variable? Because remember we had two formulae, or is it a decreasing variable? So definitely revenue collection is an increasing variable. Okay. So when it comes to the formula of low score calculation, then you can see it is 3.318. I don't know whether you're able to see at the formula bar up there. Are you able to see at the formula bar? Leave alone where we have the statistics, but where we have the formula bar at the top. Sarah?
Yes, you can see.
Unaona, that is equal to 1 plus.
We can see.
Yes, sure. So that is now just application of the formula that we saw about increasing variables. So it is linking to 1 plus 4, then into 2 times F4. Now, F4 in our case is the actual performance minus G4. F is the target. Sorry for that. Then G, you can see the column G is the one for the actual performance. Then you divide it by 2T. That is 2 times F4. It is the target. So you get that. So once you get that, there is then what we call the weighted score. Weighted score in this case, what happens is that you subject that low score with the weight. And then eventually, that's why you are seeing it is I4 times D4. If you can see the D, it is the weight that we are giving that particular parameter. And then here, you are supposed to now, we can now put the performance rating. You remember the one that was ranging from excellent, very good, good, what was the other one? Fair, and then poor at the end when it is below 50%. So even now, using, for example, this 84% performance, what would be our performance rating for that? Anybody to make a trial? Kemuto?
Yes.
Tungeweka gani hiyo? We are just trying to relate with the table ile tuliona ya excellent, ile inatoka from 130 over 130, na hii ya chini kabisa ilikuwa poor, which was below 50, si ndio? So in this case, this would be
Good.
good. This would be good. Thank you for that. So that completes that. I don't know, maybe before I go to another example, another law that is, if there is a question. Any question? I know the matrix, the maths could be more, but I want now to go to something on reducing. That is for reducing. And I want to, yes.
Maura, will you share with us the Excel
Yes.
so that we can interact?
Yes,
with it?
I have already to Dennis. So you should be able to get this after this. So let's see this one together. And this one is now time taken to respond to leaks at the burst. And here we are saying, so this would be now, for example, for the case of the water utility, this would be, it is a core mandate. So this will be part of the 60%. So out of that, we are measuring that on hours, and we have a weight of 2. So this 2 is part of the 60. And we are saying we want to respond on average within 12 hours. Okay, that is the target for 2022-23. So again, now that time, it is the same target for the year and also for the quarter. So let us assume that our actual performance out of a target of 12 hours, we were able on average to respond within 12 hours on average, okay? So you can see, since this is a reducing variable, then that is how we are getting the 80%. In other words, for those decreasing variables, and I think that is something that we should note, for you to assess the performance, is you get the target over the performance. The target over the performance. So that if this actual is less than the target, then you will get over 100%. You remember the other one? For you to get this green, we were getting the actual, if I can just here. Somebody please background. So remember this one, we are getting G, which is actual, over F, which is target. So this other one, the decreasing variable, the one on time, it is Somebody please, is it who? Mind your background. Is it Elizabeth? Yes, so, okay, that's about the calculation, okay? So then that you get 80%. So here now what I want is you look at the raw score. Now, again, I want to refer you to the formula bar at the top there. You can see we have is equal to 1 plus 2 into G. So it is that formula that we said it is 1 plus 2xa over T. So you can see it is 1 plus 2. G15 is the actual performance. In this case, it was 15 hours. Divided by F15. F, the column F, is the quarterly target. So that is how you get a raw score of 3.5. And then, of course, you then subject it to the weight. That is the weight of 2. You get 0.7. Yes. So then, using the performance rankings or ratings that we had seen, what would this be?
Good.
Excellent. So this would be good because it is between 75 and 100. Both inclusive. No, it was not only one inclusive. So that is basically how we do. So when you get this framework, you can actually do any of your time, any of your parameter, maybe just for also for demonstration as a group. Now I want to move. I want to ask just one frontier at Wambie, maybe a parameter he or she would be interested in capturing a KPI. Anybody other than Susan? Why I have excluded Susan is because we have seen the water sector, maybe another sector. Anybody else, please? So we want to just to fill one column as a way of demonstrating.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, teacher, my name is Neptune.
Yes, Neptune Keresho. Kuresho. Yes, yeah. Kuresho. Yes, please.
Yes, I'm a new HR in an organization that I joined recently.
Yes.
And the way, okay, just before I answer your question,
yes.
You are saying that for us to derive the key performance indicators, we need to have goals, objectives, like the organizational goals and objectives at large, yes. And then they are cascaded down to the individuals at low levels. But yes. Now you find maybe this organization is an NGO dealing with, it's an NGO and it has a school. And you find that the organization, like they don't have a strategic plan for the organization. And then like now they go the departmental wise, then you cascade them down. But now you find that we need to improve the performance of children, especially children from the children's home in school, because their performance is very poor. And now we have to do it as a home because we are the parents at home. And of course, those parents, we find that we have the caregivers who are directly taking care of those children. Now they have to act as their parents so that when they go to school, they're able to follow up with their academics so that we see at the end of the year, there's an improvement. So probably, I don't know now what is the key performance indicator there and how now you can do, because, I can say that I didn't even pay attention to the raw score calculation because I'm not getting anything. But now you can help me from there, because that is now what we want to see, an improved performance at the end of this year. But now how to go about it, maybe you can help me from there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Kuresho. And
Yeah.
sorry that this empirical bit is giving some challenges. But I want to encourage you that once you get the slides from then, we are also working in a constrained environment in terms of time, and also distance. But I'm sure you'll appreciate once you go through the slides. And in case of need be, there could also be opportunities for consulting. Now, so you are in NGO, basically school-based, no strategic plan. So ideally, I would recommend that you recommend to the management. If you can have that, that would be very good. So this kind of what I know generally about the NGO is that it is non-profit. So now, again, now I'm also a very good, I'm not very an expert in the education system, but I know we are currently in the CBC with, they are talking about 5 things, approaching, meeting, at the below expectation. That is mantra. So I don't know whether there is a way that you then say that you can talk about overall students' performance, if it's something you can be able to see. Because again, as an organization, you want to capture on the overall. Because I was thinking about the number of students, that may not be really the thing, but one of the key things, let's say like maybe overall students performance. Now, I'm assuming that what you can do now is you will be able to convert the various, what are they called? Exceeding expectation, improving expectation, meeting. You can be able to convert them into a kind of percentage. Yeah? I'm assuming, so we can say this would be kind of a percentage, if it can be converted. So out of whatever you do, I don't know what weight would be given to this. Maybe 50% of your activities or 40%. This is the weight out of the total, out of what you do total. We assume 40% or 20 maybe, I'm not sure. On the others. Then you say that, for example, in the last financial year, if you are able to calculate that, let's say that your students were able to do 60% on average. Okay? That is the target for that. So every time, that will still be the target. Okay? No, if you are able to do, sorry, you remember we talked about continuous improvement. So if you are able to do 60% last year, then this year it must be better.
Yes.
Yes, so it should be, let's say 70. We are using maybe hypothetical, but kind of trying to come close to your case. So that target will be the same for the quarter and the year, because this is the annual target. So you carry it. Okay. Then now out of that, then we go to assuming. Now this is just hypothetical. What do you want us to assume? What was your performance last quarter? You had a target of 70.
Okay, I can say it was like that what like the last quarter or the last year?
No, the last quarter, that is October, December quarter. We can just assume a figure. You can guide us. You don't have to be at the very actual.
Okay, it was
Can you assume 65?
Sorry?
What do you assume? I'm waiting for your input.
I've said 55%.
55?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 55%. So in that case, therefore, in that case, sorry, so this is 0.55. Sorry, just a minute. So in that case, therefore, when it comes out to performance, this is just the percentage. So you get the actual 55 divided by the target of 70. So you get you are at 79% in terms of your performance. You get, That is 55, which was the actual, out of a target of 70. Okay, just a minute. I want to make this visible. So it is 55, you divide by the target of 70. So that's how you are getting the 79%. I don't know why when I bold it, it is disappearing. But so far, so good. I hope we are together now. Yeah? Okay,
Yes.
Okay. So now, so the first thing now to ask ourselves when we are calculating the raw score is this an increasing variable or a decreasing variable?
It's an increasing variable.
Increasing variable, because the higher the better. Yes. So we can use, we should use the formula that we had for increasing variable, like leveling correction. So I'll just copy this formula and then I will just paste it here. Yeah. Then I put formula, I paste as formula. So you can see it is becoming 3.4. Again, as we were guided, this one, whenever you calculate the raw score, it will always be between 1 and 5. Okay. 1 and 5, always. Yes. Or for the lower this figure, the better. Raw score, the lower, the better. Okay. If, for example, this was, for example, 65, then this figure should be reduced. Let's try that. Supposing it was 65, which is a higher performance. You can see it has reduced. Because it is 3.1. Okay? So then, how will you rate that? We are now assuming it is 65% was the performance. Somebody else, Lesho, can you help Madam Kurecho to rate that? Sorry, niwale najua. Poleni. Amasala, or whoever, anybody else, not necessarily those.
Good.
No, not really. Remember the actual performance is 65.
Poor.
Not yet. Poor was below 50. So this is fair.
This is fair.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So sasa hiyo unamalizia hapo. So members, what I will do is that because I can see now our time is really up. Let me again, out of this exercise, maybe open up a bit before we conclude. Anybody with this specific question? I think it's good that we have done one kind of practical scenario example from Madam Kurecho out of her work environment and what can the way she can, for example, have one of the KPIs. So anybody with a question?
There was a place you had shown KPI, broad KPIs and specific KPIs.
Yes.
So the broad KPIs, is it what you can also refer to as key result areas? Sorry, the specific KPIs, is that what you would call key result areas?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So what happens is that as we were saying at the beginning is here we are talking about the key, or what you can call maybe the bottom line. For that bottom line to be realized in a particular KPI, there could be or there are associated specific activities with some timelines on the same, or with some targets on the same. So those ones now become very specific on that. But now those specifics are contributing to the achievement of the KPI, the broader one. Let me again give an example in my sector. Sorry. You see, you are talking about revenue correction. For you to achieve that, it means ideally you should be able to reduce the number of complaints. Or rather, not actually to reduce, maybe reducing in terms of maybe because of the service you're offering. But even now, when the complaints come, you should be able to respond to them as quickly as possible. Then you have the situation where a satisfied customer is more likely to pay for the services. And also, you have to supply, you have to give the service for this customer to be motivated to pay. Any other one? Okay, so I think I really want to thank you, the participants, for the active discussion that we have had. And I'm looking forward that once you receive those documentations, basically I have referred you to, or recommended you to go to the Council of Governance to see that county performance framework. I've also recommended you to visit the website of the Ministry of Public, the ministry in charge of public service performance, and this is basically the Ministry of Gender and the Affirmative Action. Then also look at the performance contracting, especially if you are in a government institution, because you see, for those others, the private, they are at liberty. They can use other instruments, or even the not-for-profit, like where Kuresho is. But if you are in the government, now performance contract is the one that is there. So once you have developed a strategic plan, work plans, then PC becomes critical. That one we may not have a lot of leeway. So also look at the guidelines. The latest is 2021, 2022. You will be able to see that. Then I think the organizer, Dennis, will be able to share with you the slide, which also has those examples that we have discussed here, so that at your own situations, when you have your KPIs, you can be able to put, you just need to put the various parameters, the weight, the target, and the actual performance. Then you determine, is it an increasing variable? Is it a reducing variable? Then you can put the formula. You can copy one of them and paste the formula in the appropriate cells. Then you'll be able to go. So what happens is that now at the bottom, once you do that, at the bottom for the row score, you average them because you can see all of them are ranging between 2, 3. So you average them. But for the weighted KPIs, you do the summing because you can see they have already been divided by the parameter 100. So you'll be doing the summing. I think that is important to note. So to get the overall performance for the row score average, do the arithmetic average. For the weighted score, you do the summing. Otherwise, I really want to thank you so much and ask Dennis, are you still around? I think, I don't know whether it is the protocol that I had there. Is Dennis around? You know this one, I am not able to see that. Sorry?
He is there, only that maybe he's not on the machine. But thank you very much, Mbutu, for the insightful information you've shared with us today, the knowledge. It is at least something new, you know, when it comes to performance management. KPIs is one of those factors that people work around, and I see there are so many ways and tools that people, different sectors and organizations use. So we will be exploring the one you've shared here today. I saw it touched a lot on public sector. Don't know if it can be transferable to private sector, NGOs, and other profitable NGOs, non-profitable NGOs. But yes, thank you very much. I'm sure there's something to borrow, even if not everything, like the formula, the knowledge of it can is an added value. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank everybody else. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, you too. You also have some messages you can read in the chat box.
Okay. I can see 21 of them.
Thank you and have a lovely weekend too.